Hello? Hello, Internet. So, in part 1, I left you with a little bit of a cliffhanger, cause you know, I'm quirky like that. Now, if you haven't watched that video, I don't know what you're doing, because you definitely should. Like, it's an amazing video, trust me, some very big brain stuff, very professional. Green branch thingy. But I understand that some of y'all are too lazy to do that. And if there's something I can relate to in this life, it's definitely laziness. So for you guys, here's a quick summary. Okay, now that we're all on the same page and half of my audience is probably gone, we can start with today's question. Why did humans evolve imaginations? Like, why did nature give us the ability to make dubstep and fan fiction instead of giving us like cool wings to fly with instead? Well, the short, boring answer is that we will never really know why things happened the way they happened. So yeah, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching, guys. Jeez, I wonder how many times that joke has been done on YouTube. But seriously now, of course it was like some kind of random mutation that gave us imagination in the first place. And it's no use wondering why that mutation occurred or how it's occurred unless you have a time machine lying around, in which case hit me up. But we can explain why this trait did not disappear. Like, why did imagination carry on to modern humans? Because, you know, natural selection clearly favored humans with imaginations, but why? Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Historians think that early Homo sapiens had limited cognitive abilities, which is to say they had big brains, but they were mostly empty like mine. This meant that we weren't that different from our Neanderthal friends. It wasn't only until later updates of the game that we upgraded these brains through random genetic mutation and unlocked new parts of our skill trees. And among these newly obtained skills, these early humans were the first to create primitive forms of art, religion, and indeed, language. Now, contrary to what you might think, language is not something specific to humans. In fact, most animals have some primitive form of language, which does not allow them to write Macbeth, but it does allow them to warn their friends about possible predators, for instance. What made our language special was that we could use it to write Macbeth. Nice. In other words, our language allowed us to communicate things that did not exist. In these 50,000 years, humans unlocked imagination. But now, being able to make it up didn't give us that much of an advantage individually. If you really think about it, humans who spent their time praying for food to gods instead of hunting for it were, at first sight, wasting their time. However, it did give us a huge survival advantage. And here's why. Picture this. This is Caveman Cole. Caveman Cole is walking around one day and he comes across a dark cave. Now, prehistoric life is really hard, and Caveman Cole really needs some rest after running in front of lions and making awkward noises all day. Of course, he could just go in. After all, what is stopping him? But Caveman Cole is smarter than that. And although he cannot see anyone trying to eat him around, he realizes that enemies could still be hidden. Hell, for all he knows, there might be a bear in the cave. So he starts to plan. He sharpens his spear, he listens for sounds of an imaginary predator, and steps carefully towards the cave. It turns out there was a bear in the cave, but our ancestor was prepared for its surprise attack and ends up killing it. Caveman Cole's ability to imagine and fear things that he couldn't really prove were real ended up being useful. In essence, imagination gives us the ability to plan ahead. And that's probably one of the reasons why it got carried on to modern humans. But there is an even greater, more important reason why we still have and cherish our imaginations, which is that they're not limited to the individual. The devs added a multiplayer mode to imagination very early on, which allowed humans to imagine things collectively. In fact, it's one of our favorite things to do. And in order to prove this to you and hopefully blow your mind, let's talk about Nike. So we all know that Nike exists, right? It's a very popular clothing brand and it's been around for ages. In fact, for most people watching this, it's been around for all our lives. But what is Nike? Is it its product? Well, clearly not, because if all Nike sneakers disappeared tomorrow, Nike the company would still exist and they could just make more. Is it its employees then? Well, again, no, because if all Nike employees were fired tomorrow, the company itself would still exist and could just hire more. Its factories, its market shares, its billboards, they could all disappear tomorrow and Nike the company would still exist. However, if tomorrow a judge decides to dissolve the company, Nike, all of its employees, products, billboards, and factories will still exist, but the company will not. And now, of course, we will all still remember Nike because we can't forget it that suddenly, but since the law has passed that says that it no longer exists, we will force ourselves to believe that it no longer exists. Which begs the question, did it ever exist? And the answer is yes, but only as a part of our collective imagination. Now, I know this sounds like some Matrix shit, but I love this thought experiment. And if you want to mess with your brain even further, you can apply the same logic to money, kings, nations, and just about anything you take for granted but can't touch. If we all decided tomorrow that Italy no longer exists, would it exist? What about money? The truth is, all of the social constructs which govern the modern world are all just lies we tell ourselves to cooperate more effectively. Now, don't take that out of context, I'm not a social anarchist. But this is what made these early Homo sapiens so powerful, right? If they all believed that God wanted them to take over the lakeland where the Neanderthals lived, they could all just work together to achieve this goal and fulfill their made-up destinies. Strangers could cooperate with strangers, which would bring more Homo sapiens together, forming larger tribes and eventually societies, which through the power of collective imagination and planning could destroy even the most powerful predators. Basically, our imaginations allowed us to become masters of this world because nature, God, or the Lion King said so. Then, when we were the only ones left, we invented crusades and the Inquisition and started burning witches. Damn, the devs really went crazy with some of those updates. But whether it was to kill enemies or to kill each other, our power always lied in our collective imaginations. And it's crazy to think how, if it weren't for our ability to imagine stuff, today we might have just been a bunch of weird chimpanzees. So anyway, there you have it. As always, I hope you've learned something. I know this was a longer episode, so I may just be talking to myself here. But if you did make it this far into the video, mad respect. Thank you for watching another episode of Shower Thoughts. Like, comment, and subscribe for more existential crises. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Peace.